Recording. Okay, I am now recording. It is June 18th, 2019. This is the scheduled meeting of ITSE 2309 at Collin College. What's that? I had a feedback there. Okay, and let's see, testing, and double check the microphone. Yeah, check, test. Okay, looks good. Today we're going to do Module 4. Module 4, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because I've just done it once, and I forgot to press the record button, so I'm going to have to do it again, but that'll be fine. I'm not going to try to fill up a whole hour here. I'm going to go through it quickly, okay? Don't want the assignments. I want the modules. We're going to be in Module 5, excuse me. Module 5 is Chapter 3, and we're beginning here. So Chapter 3, we are beginning to look at the select from where statement. The select from where statement is our basic, most common SQL statement. Select what data from which table, where it meets what criteria or criterion. These are commonly called the SFW, select from where. Data manipulation, and it allows us to retrieve data, but an SFW query does not modify data. The return type of SFW is a table. So when I say select something from some physical table where it meets some condition, the data that it gives me back, it gives them back to me in tabular form. Now I can actually create a table out of those. And we will do that some later on in this. Database, many textbooks cover something called group by at this point. I'm not going to cover it because it comes later in Chapter 5, and that's fine. I'm going to just go ahead and keep our author sequence unless I have some real problem with it. So we're talking about select from where. We're going to be selecting from a single table tonight. Next, student resources. There's my PowerPoint slides if you like PowerPoints. I don't particularly. SQL is different from other programming languages because the other programming languages are called imperative languages. In the database languages are called declarative because therein the programmer states what they want out of it, and the database engine programs itself to give it to you. We have a joke about database. The question is, this is a joke, how much memory, disk space, processor does the database require? The answer is, well, all of it. Now, unfortunately, that's true because a database does not set nicely with other programs. A database machine is usually either a dedicated database server or it isn't. So the civilian user probably doesn't use SQL. SQL is a pretty brutal language. It is an ancient language. The idea here is that the database table is way too large to fit on a floppy disk or a USB drive. So it must be manipulated, or into memory. So it must be manipulated on external storage. So what a database does, very, very high speed, it does input and output very, very well. It is optimized for input and output. It will throw all kinds of processor power at something to avoid one disk read. Even when it could read probably faster than it could process something. So it's profligate in its use of memory and of processor power. This is why I tell you always to turn off your database engine if you're not using it. Database server is probably the most valuable crown jewel, I say here, of your organization's digital assets. It deserves a high level of protection. And so we have a dedicated class to that one. Next. And I need to go close my door or I'm going to be recording Donald Trump's speech. And the last thing I want to do is compete with a MAGA speech. Okay, we're not going to be using any of those tables that we created in Module 3. If you want to drop them, feel free. Notice you drop foreign keys first. From now on, well, not all the time, but we're going to be using the AP_DB table. In its simplest form, the select statement is select what fields from which table. So here's an example. There's the simplest example. Select vendor name, vendor city from vendors. And I believe I have that one up over here. So here it is. And I've added vendor state to this one. You can add vendor state if you want to. No. Okay. Execute. The first time you do it, you will need to highlight use APDB and execute that first. Now, before you've done that, if you've just started your database, it doesn't know what database to use. So you're going to have to tell it that if you just start off cold and you execute this, it'll say, I don't know what vendors is. So you have to execute this first, but you don't have to do it each time. Execute. Boom. Okay. So there's vendor name, vendor city, vendor state, and I have 122 rows, as I can see down in the bottom of it. Please do not do this. Do not put the identifiers inside of square brackets. When you put an identifier inside of square brackets, you're telling me essentially that you're trying to put spaces in your field names, and that should never, never happen. Never spaces in your field names. So don't do it. There's no reason to do it, and it is considered undesirable. Also, you do not have to do go between select statements. There is no reason to do go. Each select statement stands alone, and when I do a create table, if I say create something, I want to do go around it, but I'm not creating anything. I'm just returning some data. So I don't have to have go, and I will probably make a flatulent noise at you if you use go inappropriately. Now I'm going to show you something here. Use ScratchDB, and so I'm just going to create table test. This is creating a field, and the field has a space in it. Bad, bad, bad. That means it's not good. Don't do this. Don't ever do this. You can do it in Access. You can do it in SQL Server. I'm not sure whether Oracle will let you do this or not. I've never tried it because I've never tried it, period. I mean, I've tried it here, but there's no reason to have a space in a field name. Just don't do it. So therefore, you don't need these square brackets around it. This is okay. Sometimes you will want to rename your output. So vendor name as, and this is vendor space name, $. So I've renamed it. If I execute this, notice that here vendor name $, and this in vendor space city. Oh, that's okay. But I mean, why? I can think of some reasons why you might want to do it that way, because maybe your users want to see it that way. Maybe they're dropping it into a spreadsheet. And that's okay. It could be that your end user is actually getting this output and they want to see spaces in it. And if they do what they want to do. That doesn't mean you name your field with a space. It's an alias. It's another name. We're giving it another name. And this is the way you do it. Select vendor name as the alias. More commonly, it would be something like this. I say select vendor name as VN. Most of the time when I'm renaming something, I'm doing it to make it shorter because I don't like typing. So I would give it a short terse name to use in my query. And that would save me from having to type it a bunch of times if I'm typing it later. More often you see it used down here in the for the table than up here in this guy. Vendors as V. So when I talk about vendors in the future, all I have to do is say V, and that means vendors. So it's just an alias. Now this works, but I'm going to go ahead and mention this. It is possible to drop the as. So up here I had vendor name as VN, and here I just say vendor name space VN. This will work. So these two statements, line 28 and line 34, are the same, except I want to see it this way. Is that clear? Since I'm making a re-recording, I don't have anybody with me right now. I want to see the as. It's possible to drop it. My advanced students do drop it, but in this class, we're going to use it. Questions? Well, questions now. Okay, okay, here's where. Introducing the where clause now. The where clause restricts the rows that are returned. I only want to see rows from California, so this is how I would do it. And I have that one up over here. So here's where vendor state is CA, and then I've added the Fresno to it. So select where vendor state is CA. If I execute that, I see only California, and I see 75 rows from California. By the way, you're noticing here probably that I can execute half of a query. Yes, you can execute half of a query. Queries all end in semicolon. But if I execute half of a query, this half that I executed doesn't end in a semicolon. I want to make sure all of your queries please end in a semicolon. So I can put an and in here. So I want to see from vendors where the state is CA and the city is Fresno. Execute that. Guess where our publisher lives? In Fresno, California. Questions on that? I guess you can email me your questions. I'm just used to pausing for questions. It's bred into the DNA of teachers, even though I'm the only one here. Select vendor city, default terms ID from vendors, order. Okay, I'm doing the order by now. Let me go here. The fields in the where clause do not have to be in the select line. It is, notice in this example, the vendor state is not in the select line. That's okay. Any field or fields in the where clause do have to be in the table. Since we have introduced the equal to operator, I'll do the rest of them. You have greater than, you have less than. Not equal to is a little strange sometimes. We use what I call the diamond inequality, which is less than or greater than. But if you don't like that one, you can also use the exclamation point equal. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And an or may be used and work just like you would expect them to, just like they work in every other programming language and logic. In a sophomore level class, I shouldn't have to tell you what and or mean. But I mean, if I do, I do. I'll email me and I'll be happy to meet you on Zoom. Database is unordered, but a query may be sorted by any field in the base table. So it is ordered, but we consider it to be an unordered set. Yes, it's ordered by the primary key, but we pretend like we don't know that. Okay, so I select vendor city, default terms ID from vendors, California, and default terms ID greater than or equal to 2, and I say order by the vendor city. So on this one, order by vendor city, execute, and I see all of these guys. Everything here, I get 65 rows in from California, and default terms ID greater than or equal to 2. There's 65 rows that meet this where condition, the compound, and I say order by vendor city. So notice I start with Anaheim, Brea, Fresno, a bunch of Fresnos. and on up through Manhattan. I didn't know there was a Manhattan in California, Pasadena, Sacramento, and all the way to Valencia, excuse me. Now, notice it's sorted in ascending order, and if I just say order by, I will get it in ascending order. There is the ASC mentioned in the textbook. If you say ASC, you're specifying ascending order, but I probably, SQL programmer will never write ASC because it is just assumed that if you don't write anything, it's always ascending order. If you want it in descending order, you have to specify DESC, you have to specify descending. And now you get to see it in descending order execute. So now it's in reverse order. It is sorted in the order that you would find it in the alphabet if you were to alphabetize. The time that it gets a little strange is when you have numbers stored as text fields. Now it's okay, everything's fine if each number is always 4 digits. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4 will always sort before 1, 2, 3, 5. No problem. 1, 2, 3, 4 will come before 2, 3, 4, 5. However, 1, 2, 3, 4 will come after 2. No, 2 will come after 1, 2, 3, 4. Just the number 2 will come after 1,234. Excuse me. And that's just because that's how it would be alphabetized. If you put leading zeros on the 2, where you had it stored as 0002, it would sort just fine. And there's a lot of techniques you can use, but when you have numbers stored as character strings, sometimes sometimes things get weird with that. So with just names and stuff like that, everything's fine. Okay, vendor phone. Let's talk about this. Okay, everything. You can order by more than one field. You can order by vendor city, vendor zip code, because I'll have lots of people living in Fresno, for example, but they'll all live in many different zip codes. So I will have the cities will all be sorted, and within them, the zip code will be sorted. This will be important if you're ever doing a mailing, because they want it sorted by city and zip code. Null values, nothing gives us lots of trouble. Null values, I hate null values. We really don't like them at all. The relational operators make no sense when applied to null. The equal to means is the same thing as, but null isn't a thing. Is my car older than your car, newer than your car, the same age as your car if I don't have a car? Well, would they be equal if I don't have a car and you don't have a car? Are both of our cars the same age? The answer is no, because we don't have a car. It makes no sense to ask that question. An SFW query that has a null in it, for example, this vendor phone. Let's see, I had order by here. Order by vendor phone. I'll just put a semicolon and comment the rest of it out. When I run this, I'm going to see all the vendor phones. I'll just see a bunch of nulls here. So notice all the nulls come first. So I'm sorting in ascending. Since I didn't say anything, I'm getting it in ascending order. So now I get like the 947s and so on. But the nulls all come first. If I specify descending, the nulls come last. The nulls still come at the low end. And this is just because they have to go someplace. They have to go someplace. So if I change this, instead of order by, I say where. Oh, where. Where, oh, where. vendor phone equals null. And if I were to execute this, I will get actually nothing, because, well, I know I got a bunch of nulls in there. Well, what if I said does not equal null? It seems like I ought to get something here, because it either equals null or it doesn't equal null, but I still get nothing. And the problem being is that if I apply any of those relational operators, less than, greater than, equal to, and all that jazz, to null, it makes no sense. So it doesn't show me anything. But if I say is null or is not null, then I will get I'll get the one, all this is going to show me is a big bunch of null. Oh, okay, is not null. It shows me the phone numbers. And if I say is null, this one's going to be kind of useless because all it does is show me nulls, but I could, get vendor name in there too if I wanted to see, if I cared who I don't have a phone. Didn't really need to show the vendor phone. I know it's got to be null because that's in the where, but these are the ones for which I have null phone numbers. Okay, I'm moving a little fast here so that I don't really see any need to just fill up the time. Distinct, if you say distinct, that obliterates duplicates. It replaced the word unique. You used to say unique, now we say distinct. An example of this would be, I want to see the states, and I only want to see the states once. I don't care how many Californias and Texas and all that we have. If we have one, I want to see it. So there's Arizona, California, and so on, and we even have a Texas. But I don't know how many. I can find out how many, but that's another chapter. Okay, and this will be the last topic. Like I say, I've gone through this a little faster than usual. It is possible to derive a new field from one or more fields. Invoice total, payment total, credit total are all fields in the invoices table. They are all numbers. They're not text, they're numbers. They are money, in fact, and money is stored as an integer. Anytime that you fix the decimal point, you have an integer, and money, the decimal point, is fixed at 4 decimal places to the right of the decimal. And that's just the way they do it. You'd think it was 2, but it's really not 2. It's really 4. You see gasoline selling for, $2.90 and 9/10. So we have invoice total, payment total, credit total. Thus, the amount due would be the invoice total minus the sum of the payment total and the credit total. So parentheses, payment total plus credit total. Okay, now you could also accomplish the same thing if you lose the parentheses and just put a minus in there. So invoice total minus payment total minus credit total would be the same thing. Yeah, all that math stuff, it works, from your 7th grade. Therefore, if I say something like this, select invoice number, invoice total minus payment total plus credit total as amount due from invoices, and I believe I have that one up in here. Here we have it. Don't worry about the squiggly red lines. And if I go execute, I see all of it. But notice I got a whole bunch of zeros in there. Now, I'm not too worried about the zeros, but I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. So here it is, invoice total, credit total as amount due. Now, what would happen if I forgot to put as amount due? Okay, and that's my favorite thing to do. I always forget that. And notice how it's going to change the output. And notice, see, this column right here comes back as no column name in parentheses. We should never see that. I should never turn in an assignment where you have no column name showing. Sometimes we don't always name everything, and it is possible to use it and it not have a name. We don't give everything names sometimes when we maybe should, but don't ever leave it output as no column name. So we will always go in and give it a name as amount due. Execute. Now he's got a name, amount due. I'm going to where, now I'm only interested in where the invoice total I'm going to say is greater than 0. Now your use of spaces here is kind of your call. Whatever you think works there. No, excuse me, not that, not invoice total. Amount due. Where the amount due is greater than 0. Notice I'm already getting a red squiggly line on that. And the reason I am is because it's going to barf when I try to run it. And as it does, it says invalid column name. And well, you say, well, what's the matter with it? How come it can't see amount due? And the answer is, well, because it can't see it. Now, this is important that you listen to this. What do I have to do? I'm going to have to copy and paste this calculation in there. The reason for that, okay, here comes this is probably the most important thing I'm saying today. Notice the order of evaluation of an SFW, the sequence of evaluation. The first thing that gets evaluated is the from. So where the from, the invoices. So if I alias the table, that's visible everywhere. The second thing that gets evaluated is the where clause. Now the where is where. I'm trying to do this. It's on the where thing, but we haven't evaluated this top line yet. It's coming the third thing, so this hasn't happened yet. The third thing that happens is the select, and the fourth thing is the order by. So I can't talk about the amount due. I can only, if I want to talk about something, I have to copy and paste as my friend. I have to copy this and paste it here. I think I have 0 on that. So where it's greater than 0. And it is perfectly okay to say order by amount due. Why is it okay to say order by amount due? Notice that's the fourth thing. That happens after the select. So from where, select, order by, and there'll be some other lines that we will add to that. So that might be a good thing to remember because that's going to become very important in database. By the way, so will this calculation. You're going to be using this one a lot. Execute and everything runs fine. Well, I got through that in 37 minutes. Okay, next gives us a wrap up and go through some stuff. Some stuff I didn't cover a whole lot. Arithmetic expressions like add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Page 96, 97, they're covered pretty well. Every other programming language, they work exactly the same way. There's nothing special about them. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide work like they do on your calculator. Parentheses, powers, multiply, divide, add, subtract. And distinct keyword, we're not gonna, the textbook covers the top clause on page 102 and 103. I'm gonna put that off, I think, until next time. It's worth reading. Go ahead and read it. I'll talk about it later. Next. There's a quiz. Next. Okay, here's the assignment. There's the Word document, or you can get it from here. I do the first one for you. I will seldom say select asterisk. That means everything from vendors. Return all rows and columns. I don't know. I'll probably take that one out because I didn't really cover the asterisk. And the reason I didn't cover it is because it's seldom used. Later, when you get to more advanced time, you see, I really want these guys named so I can refer to their names. Anyway, but I did it for you. Okay, you just copy that one and paste it, and now you get credit for number one. Right, to select column, it will return 3 rows, and I tell you what to return. I give you some hints all the way through it. At the last, you come to number 8. It says it's a challenge. That does not mean that you don't have to do it. If you don't do it, you don't get credit for it, okay? So I'm not gonna, just because I said challenge, oh, it's a challenge, I can't do it. That doesn't mean not to do it. I want you to try it. If you need to email me and ask me what I was smoking when I wrote that, go ahead, I guess, and I'll see what I can do to help. It's not that hard, if you think about it. Next. I'll give you some output here. So this helps you check your output. I'm showing you what I got. Now don't take all this to the bank. My stuff can be just as bad as the next guy's. So this is to help you check your output. If you think yours is right and it looks something like this, if you're off by 1, you can argue with me. Okay, well, that's all I got. I got through that in 45 minutes, and it took me an hour last time, but I went a little faster since I had to go through it a second time. Okay, let me get this started processing, and I'll get it uploaded right away. And if there's any further questions, I'll take them. I'm available to meet you on Zoom on most days. Not Wednesdays, typically not Wednesday nights. Got some other duties. So I will see you guys later. I'm going to stop the recording now. Ending recording.